have started now. Welcome. It's recording.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Chuck?
The recording started.
Okay, thank you. And do we have Gareth with us?
Yeah, Gareth, you're not showing as muted on the Teams interface, but we can't hear you.
I'll switch to the camera microphone. That tends to work in this situation.
It does, yes, I can hear you, Gareth.
Okay, I'm going to have to give myself a new microphone, I think.
Okay. And do we have Liz with us?
Not just yet.
Oh, okay, Liz hasn't told me she's going to be away. Naomi, is Naomi with us? Oh, looks like Laura in her shed. Hello, Laura.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Sun's just beginning to come up. Okay, and has Kim joined us?
Yes, Kim has just joined. She probably missed you asking a second ago, Mark.
Okay, that's good. Okay, in which case we've got Kim, we've got Laura, we've got Gareth. Shall we kick off?
And you've also got Kevin, Malcolm.
Mr. Stewart!
Oh, Kevin, you're here, Kevin. I was not expecting you.
You have me as a bonus today.
Brucey bonus.
Right, okay, so we've got a Brucey bonus. Let's start because it's 1 minute past 12. So good morning, everybody, and I hope you're all keeping well. The nights are starting to draw in, I notice, yeah, light is only just coming up here in Chicago, so that's a bit later than it normally is. I think we're going to have Naomi on.
Hiya.
Oh, hi, Naomi's here. Hi, Naomi.
Hello.
Liz, are you with us? No, not yet. Okay, and today, and we've got Gareth. Hi, Gareth. How are you doing?
Hello.
And Kevin, who I wasn't expecting to join us, has joined us.
Hello there.
Is that a football pitch you're on there, Kevin?
Never, Malcolm.
And we've got with us this week Kim Larkin. Hi, Kim. You're going to give us an update on some stuff.
Hello, everyone.
And we've got Jake Elliott, who's doing the marshalling this week. Nick is sunning himself in Cornwall somewhere. Hi, Jake.
Hi, everyone.
Right, okay, so I'm not going to do the Beck stats this week because we haven't done them, so it's as simple as that. But I will go over to Kevin to give us a quick update on council tax and business rates.
Not really much to say because I'm back to the first week in 2 weeks. Anyone might have read the MHCLG guidance or from the Cabinet Office on council tax collection. I'll leave you to judge how useful that will be. On business rates, the expanded retail discount, the nursery discount at 66%. It's interesting to see how many are opting out and how many aren't applying for it. We have introduced a claim form. On the grants, obviously the restart grants, you've got all the monitoring now and the reconciliations to do. The restart grant guidance will come out at September on reconciliations. For those of you still to pay out additional restrictions grant, that's until the 31st of March 2022. We as an authority have paid all ours out, although they keep asking for the stats still every week. So it's still busy, I would say.
Okay, so it's not likely to let up, is it, before the end of the financial year?
I think the period that will be interesting is between now and the end of the job furlough scheme and just after the job furlough scheme finishing, to see what the impact of that will be on collection and benefits as well.
Okay, that ends in what, about 4 or 5 weeks?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so then things will liven up, I should imagine. Okay, thanks, Kevin. That's brilliant. Kim, we're going to come over to you now. You're going to give us an update. Are you ready for that? And I'll start to take you through your slides.
Okay, thank you for the very flattering picture, by the way, Malcolm.
It's a lovely picture.
Yes. Okay. About 2 weeks ago now, on the WhatsApp group, I think it was Lynn McMorris asked for an update on the status of those from the EEA at the moment and access to benefits. So it's very brief because well, there's still a lot of questions unanswered. There's a severe lack of detail. So I go through what I do have and then hopefully discuss with you the outstanding questions that we still all have. And if anybody's got any view on those. I'm not going to dwell on these slides. They're just here for a reminder to everybody. And what we're talking about is the end of the grace period. And those that failed to apply to the EU settlement scheme, as of the 1st of July, they became persons subject to immigration control and potentially faced a benefits cliff edge. And that was the situation as at the 30th of June. And the government had been long under pressure to reconsider that and extend that date. So let's have a look at what they actually did. A reminder here, again, I'm not going to dwell on this slide, that's just a reminder here for you of those that did face the benefit cliff edge. Malcolm? So people that didn't apply in time have always had the opportunity for a late application where there are reasonable grounds in which to do so. And Home Office documents and guidance do give extensive examples of those reasonable grounds. And also there doesn't appear to be any time limit for late applications in that guidance. And as it stands, those that did make a late application, their rights would resume in terms of right to reside, access to benefits, etc. But the period between the 1st of July and the date that they submitted their application, that would not be backdated. They would still have no rights in that interim period. The EU has made an argument that that's incorrect under Article 18.3 of the Withdrawal Agreement, but the UK government has so far rejected that agreement. And I'm mentioning this because this will become quite clear as to how that gap can still affect people despite other things the government have done. Malcolm? There's a but coming here as to what the government have now allowed since the 1st of July. All local authorities received a letter dated the 2nd of July, and it was to inform them about extra statutory payments Now, the pressure was on the government to extend the grace period deadline, but they didn't actually do that. What they've granted is extra statutory payments for benefits. Yeah. So they've said that they're going to continue to support through the DWP claimants that haven't as yet applied to the EU settlement scheme by the end of the grace period, and they've said that they will continue to support them for a short period. They haven't given an actual end date, a final end date as yet to what that short period will be, and that is an extra statutory payment for persons on benefit, existing claimants on benefit, and that allows those payments of benefits to continue so that they don't have that 1st of July benefits cliff edge. And the DWP are going to do some signposting, which they were due to begin in the middle of July. So what we do know is that benefits will continue from the 1st of July for affected EA nationals who had an existing award of benefit on the 30th of July 21. And the Home Office wrote to all of those that had still not applied in mid-July to prompt them to make an urgent application or risk losing their benefits. There may still be a benefit cliff edge at some point yet to come. So if they do make the application, where the application is made, the extra statutory payments will continue until that immigration decision is made, or if there is an appeal that's made because of a negative decision, then the payments will continue pending the outcome of that appeal. The DWP are due to issue a final letter in September. We don't know what date in September as yet. And then once those letters are issued, those applicants have 1 month with which to apply to the EU settlement scheme. And if they don't, their extra statutory payments will cease. And the DWP have informed local authorities that they are working to allow LA access to the Get Home Office data feature in Searchlight, but no more particular details about that I've been able to find. The DWP have also said that they're going to put out detailed guidance via the DWP ADM memos for their own staff, but there is nothing there yet that's been published that I can find. I'm not aware of any other letters that have gone direct to local authorities, but when we get to the last slide, you might be able to correct me there. On the 6th of August, there was an announcement from the Home Office that they will take a similar approach to joining family members, and that they will give them temporary protection for 3 months after they arrive in the UK. There's no specifics, though, about extra statutory payments for benefits here. It's been assumed by the likes of RightsNet that does include extra statutory payments for benefits, but it is very unclear. What's unclear is, do they have to apply to the EU settlement scheme first in order to receive any benefit payments? And if they do, will they be backdated to the date that they arrived in the country? So for me, this is still a question. It's still a big question. It's not clear to me. So despite what's on RightsNet, I can't guarantee what's on there is absolutely correct. We're making some further inquiries on that point. I've given you there a link for you to have a look at that, and you will see that on this .gov.uk page, it makes more reference to employment and housing than it does to benefits. Malcolm? So before I ask your thoughts, I've got some thoughts about CTR, which I omitted to put into a slide here, so forgive me for that. These extra statutory payments are for benefits through DWP. I can't find anything at all from the housing communities and local government about this entire subject. So unless anybody out there from local authorities and the Revenues Department have had any letters to say otherwise, I can't see that these extra statutory payments beyond the 1st of July actually apply council tax reduction. I'm not saying they don't, I'm not saying they do. It seems open because if you think about it, in the prescribed requirements for council tax reduction, all of the legislation that applies to persons as not treated as being in Great Britain are worded exactly the same as they are for persons from abroad in the housing benefit regulations. So without anything that allows extra statutory payments for these people, I'm not quite sure. I have severe doubts as to whether or not council tax reduction can be paid in that interim period until they actually make that application to the EU settlement scheme. So between the 1st of July and them actually making that application, are they actually entitled to any of these payments for council tax reduction, simply because they will be persons subject to immigration control during that period? Because these extra statutory payments haven't taken away the fact, as far as I can see, that these are persons subject to immigration control. That still applies. They didn't extend the grace period in itself. The end of the grace period still was the 30th of June. And also, my thoughts on that are similar for housing, homelessness and employment, etc. So over to you, all of you from local authorities, to give your thoughts on this, and have you had any other direct communications from either the DWP or housing communities and local government?
Okay, thank you very much, Kim. Yeah, let's open it up for local authorities to comment. Jake, if you see anyone raising their hands. Can I start with Naomi whilst we're waiting for people to join in the conversation? Naomi, what's your thoughts on this?
Oh, well, I like Kim, I'm not sure that we can make that payment. These aren't, they're not benefit entitlements necessarily. So I think that there is some debate on what that passports individuals to get. From our point in Cambridge, we got a list of people who hadn't applied, and there was only 13 on there. So I've written out to everyone last week and prompting them to go and talk to DWP and the Home Office. It's very difficult. Clearly, we have a duty to ensure that people claim the right thing, but this is not really our area of expertise.
And presumably, Naomi, this might require a change to the scheme, which can't occur mid-year.
Well, I'm not sure, because if they are a person from abroad, if they are deemed to be a person from abroad, they are already excluded from the scheme anyway. So it's just whether this brings them into being an eligible person to claim, or they are not eligible to claim. I don't think we need to change our schemes, because I think that gateway is already framework.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right there, Naomi. It's part of the prescribed requirement. So within your local scheme rules, you're not able to change that, at least not at the moment. My thoughts are possibly is that if somebody comes along to you having applied late to the EU settlement scheme, and there is a gap period between July and the date that they claim, will that be extra pressure on your discretionary scheme?
Yeah, it would be, definitely.
Yeah, I was just about to ask the same question, because presumably they would still be entitled to put in a request under 13C. Yeah.
Malcolm, we have a hand raised from Richard Hurley.
Yeah, let's have Richard in.
Hello, I'm from Dudley Local Authority. It's just a question about further before you had one of the slides, it said family members, not the joining family members, a bit earlier on, and how you treat those. And sorry, I missed that. I missed that slide. It was on very quickly.
That slide there, Richard, was brought forward from a previous session that I did. I haven't gone into any detail on those slides, but if you've got any specific questions about anything on those slides, if you'd like to ping me a message or send a message through to Team Netsol to pass on to me, either way, I'd be happy to answer it for you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, yes, you can put them into the WhatsApp group as well if you remember, so that everyone can see them. That'd be great. Okay, so any other takers for questions?
Malcolm, it's Laura. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please. I was just about to come to you, so that's great. Go on.
You know me, I'm controversial. In typical fashion, I have to go one more than Naomi in Oxford. We've got 14. So like Naomi, we've written out and we've done that. But I'm not sure they are suitable for Section 13A write-off, because that is local government funding, which is state funding. And that's something which we have sent back to our legal department to ask what the definition of local assistance is and how it falls under state funding. Because if you choose to use your discretion to remove the council tax charge, in effect, you are using taxpayers' money to fund that account.
Yes,
so I'm not sure that you can use Section 13A. So what I have done from my side is I have suspended all 14 accounts. If, like, a bit like Naomi, these people then decide, oh, I didn't realise I didn't qualify, I better go and sort out my settled status, and they've got the gap because, like we've said already, Kim has pointed out that it's not going to be backdated as such. It'll go from, let's say, the 1st of September. So if you've got the gap of July and August on your council tax charge because you were entitled up to the end of July, up to the end of June, then you've got a gap, and then from, in effect, July, September, you then qualify because you meet the settled status part. We are saying at this precise moment, you've got to charge them for the 2 months.
I think that's open to interpretation. I can see that argument, and I can also see a different argument in that during that period they might have no recourse to public funds. And I think that's where you're coming from, because council tax is reduction is a public fund. So during that period, but once they've applied, and they then during that period they then allow the support from that point on, you're making that payment during that. It's not a payment of council tax reduction per se. It's from your discretionary scheme. So once you get into that period where they have become entitled to public funds, I think it's open to interpretation that, and I think there's an argument to say that you could pay it. But of course, yeah, I mean, get proper legal advice, of course, is always the way to go.
We have a hand raised from Megan Shepherd.
Hi, from Mid Sussex District Council. Just to say, we didn't do as well as, or we did better, depending on which way you look at it, as Naomi and Laura. We had 6 on our list, and we have phoned them all, and 3 of them have got indefinite leave to remain, so don't need to have settled status. So it's just a tip, really, that you might might want to check whether they actually do need settled status if they've come up on your list.
Megan, have you gone back to the Home Office then to say why they're coming back on the list if they've already got the right leave status?
We have, and we've heard nothing back in reply to that. So, you know, we've done what we can do.
No, but that's interesting. That is, because I must admit, we have taken it on face value, and I have to say, we, a bit like Naomi, have just done the letter out. We didn't make direct contact via phone call. So that's interesting. Maybe our 14 isn't as bad as we think it is.
Yeah, I mean, our thoughts on the phoning out was just they've already had letters from the Home Office, which they probably have ignored.
Yeah.
So just trying to communicate with them by a different method.
Yeah. Yeah, some authorities have very few. I think the majority have less than 100, but the larger metropolitans may have quite a few more. Are there any London authorities on? Can they give any numbers?
We don't have any hands up. Nobody's volunteering that information, I'm afraid. Malcolm, you've muted yourself.
Yeah, can I just come back to the public funds question? Because I think the public fund question is incredibly complicated. Because if I remember correctly, and somebody here will correct me if I'm wrong, or has a different view, but the public fund part of CTR would have been the money that we used to get from the DWP, which of course has been laundered basically through local government communities, because public funds are kind of they're a defined part of public finance. So things like benefits and the old CTB and CTR, I think when it was funded by the DWP, they were all kind of listed as public funds, but other funding, which might go through things like to fund service provisions, they're not necessarily public funds in the same way, they're just public finances. So the rules on not having access to public funds is limited to those things that the government says are public funds, and not to all monies that are managed by local authorities or even central government. So I think it's a slightly more complicated question, because you know the funding for Section 13C payments, I think, may arguably be coming from public finances, not necessarily public funds.
Yeah, council tax reduction is a named public fund,
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that point. What I'm saying is first off, you've got to identify the amount of money that is in your budget that falls within that remit. Additional funding to support those kind of schemes aren't necessarily exactly the same kind of thing. That's why you need proper legal advice and probably accountant's advice as well.
I mean, my view is once you get to that point of them having applied, then a discretionary payment can be made under 13C. But again, you know, that's just my view, and proper legal advice would need to be taken on that.
Kim, I'm not using 13C, I'm using 13A.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think the CTR is a defined public funds, even though you don't know specifically how much your public funding is through the grants from central government.
Yes,
but like Laura, you could have a discretionary that you're not going to collect that debt for a period of time. And I don't think that element of it is defined as public funds. However, it wholly comes out of the billing authority's funding.
Yeah, that
That's
was
how I
the point.
saw it.
That was the point I was trying to make. 13A almost certainly will be public funds, but beyond that becomes a bit more cloudy.
We had a couple of updates in the chat. So Chris Henry has telling us that Havering have had 30 cases, and Kirsty Brooksmith from Hammersmith and Fulham, they have 44 cases. We also have a hand raised from Liz. Liz Whitehead Davis is on.
No, I was only going to say what you've just said, Jake. For those not looking at chat, there have been some replies about London authorities, so you've beaten me to it.
Gareth, what's your kind of view on this? How is this going to impact on the kind of people that use your services?
Well, I'm sitting here feeling baffled because I know nothing at all about the inner workings of council tax and council tax reductions. So I haven't got the faintest idea what 13A and 13C refer to. My only sort of comment is that I have kind of assumed in an uninformed way that certainly council tax reduction is not a benefit, and therefore anything which applies to benefits doesn't automatically apply to council tax reduction. And that's about as far as I have gone in my thinking, I'm afraid.
Gareth, just to give you a bit of insight, so section 13A is the discussion that allows a local authority the discretion not to charge the council tax bill. So say, for example, someone's got £1,000 bill, they, for whatever reason, in their local scheme for council tax, the reduction scheme, they haven't got backdating rules. So you then refuse it under the 13C as part of your council tax reduction scheme, but you could use your discretion to remove the charge under section 13A. Now, it would be remiss of me not to say, I know that you work for the voluntary sector, it's not something that we highly publicise. It might be font 6 on a bill. It could be buried to page 700 on a web page, because when we don't collect money, it's obviously a cash flow problem. But there is that scope of which we all talk about it as section 13A for council tax to remove the charge as such. And there is no appeal rights or anything. It simply is our discretion. So where we're kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, if you're paying benefit up to a point and you've then got a gap for whatever reason, the council could use section 13A to remove that other small residual amount for very simple reasons. The cost of collection, for example, you know, it may completely outweigh the charge of what's being left reminded. You could have a local scheme where you don't recover monies because it's lower than your court cost fees, for example. And in effect, then you use your section 13A provision to remove that difference. But otherwise, we will, as a council, try to collect as much money as possible. So we do use it, but usually you'll find our budget is so small and far between on that. It's not actively used, if I can put it politely.
Okay, that's really useful. Thanks. So that raises two points that I really ought to ask questions about. One is, as far as I'm aware, discretion is always absolute unless it's constrained. In other words, there's nothing that stops you exercising discretion unless you're told that you can't under some particular circumstances. And doesn't that open up the fact that can you really have a budget for discretion? Because then that would imply that once your budget was gone, even though you have a legal kind of Wednesbury duty not to fetter you, well, that's the reasonableness bit, but you can't fetter your discretion. You can't fetter it for budgetary reasons either, can you?
No, absolutely. And I would agree with you. Malcolm and I often talk about the fact of discretionary housing payments. You can't use financial constraints as a reason not to pay a DHP because you can go over your permitted total as such. However, in reality, we are in the real world. There's law and then there's real world. You do have to have a budget for it as such. Every financial year we have to account for it somehow. Otherwise, the accountants at the end of the year will go, well, where's this lot of collection? Why aren't you collecting 100%? So we do have to account as such for it, which is where it will fall under a section 13A or possibly bad debt provision, depending on how they use it. But yes, no, you shouldn't necessarily do that. I mean, from an Oxford's point of view, we are quite strict. It's probably a polite word to use on it. It's very rarely given. We do take into account the facts, and you'll probably get the answer of no.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that, in terms of budgetary constraints, I mean, you can restrict discretionary payments because of budgetary constraints, but you have to be clear and transparent and fair. And it's not an absolute blocker, because, you know, even if you've got somebody who meets all the criteria, but it really highlights the importance of having proper schemes and proper framework around discretionary payments, and so that you can work within those budgetary constraints. I know it does give local authorities huge amounts of problems being able to do this. It's not impossible, but it does require you to be, you know, you have to think about the schemes and the decisions being made far more carefully. You know.
Yeah, there is a decision, I can't remember the name of it, that does require local authorities to publish their discretionary scheme, and to you know, and to have a policy around that. I cannot remember at the name of the scheme, but it did. A local authority was challenged quite early on in cancer tax reduction on this a few years ago.
Well, that's the
scheme.
Yeah, I mean, that's the very reason why you have consultation. I mean, that's why consultation is important. And it's the same piece of legislation. I can't remember what it is either, but there is a piece of legislation, because for CTR, though it's a discretionary scheme, it is still a cash limited discretionary scheme. Not all discretionary schemes are equal, as it were. And CTR is a case in point, because you can, you know, you need to have that consultation period so you can try and knock all of those links. But then, of course, you're obliged to still have a backstop in all of that. In any case, Jake, do we have anybody else who wants to join in?
We have Naomi's just made a comment about how you must publicise your discretionary scheme as an LA, but then immediately saying she challenges people to actually find the publicised discretionary scheme.
I challenge people to find the actual CTR scheme on many local authority websites, let alone their discretionary scheme.
There I would agree. Because we have to have the individual CTR schemes in our calculators, we have sort of 3 people basically working full time and just trying to extract the rules, and then, of course, to understand them. I have to say that local authorities are not terrifically good at drafting legislation, and some of these schemes seem to have been drafted in order to, I guess, ensure that entitlement only goes to one-legged, red-headed women, of whom the only example in the authority is the leaders aren't. I mean, that kind of thing, it does seem to be buried sometimes in the kind of unnecessary level of detail that people go into.
Well, we do a plain language, version of those schemes to make them much clearer and much more transparent. Okay, does anybody else have anything to add to this one?
There's nothing at the moment.
Okay, well, I notice it's 12:37. We're just coming up towards the end. Because can I thank you, Kim? That's been an interesting and lively debate. I thank you very much. If we've just got a couple of minutes, can I just pick up on the business rates collection thing? Kevin, do you want to say something about this one? This is part of the re-evaluation of business rates, and the government is suggesting that they're going to take out telecom companies, 5G phone providers, and railway services from the local authorities' billing list, and centralise it instead.
There's not much you can say to this other than the fact that I think there'll be more and more being taken out of the business rates lists, and the revaluation is going to have a huge impact, bearing in mind that rates retention is a fundamental part of financing of local government.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting times. I don't think it's going to get any easier for local government in so many different ways.
Yeah, I thought this was quite interesting because I thought the argument to, which is at the bottom, to move telecom companies and larger railways to the central list is because they span a number of billing authorities. I mean, at what point would Tesco's say the same?
I think it could open the floodgates, but I wait with trepidation the fundamental review of business rates, because we're hearing little tidbits come out beforehand before they've even reviewed the business rates. So it's going to be very interesting. The autumn is fast approaching, and hopefully, you never know, we might find out what their response is to the fundamental review of business rates.
Well, I presume, Kevin, also this is an area which is subject to huge amounts of lobbying by third parties or interested parties.
Well, some people may have seen that at a conference last year, I did say business rates in its current format was dead. I stand by that. I think there's got to be a review of it. I'm not saying business rates is wrong, but I think the way it's currently set up, either the government can't afford it. We mentioned already from 100% to 66% on expanded retail discount. The grants have dried up. And I think the high street is going to look very different going forward. And the interesting things on collection going forward will be even more difficult.
Okay, I think that's probably fair enough. Does anybody have a comment on this? Liz, I'm sure you have a comment. Can we have a quick comment from you?
Well, I haven't really, apart from, as I said, well, thanks, Malcolm. I agree with Kevin. I think it's possibly the thin end of the wedge.
Yeah, I think much the same. Naomi, do you agree with this or disagree with this?
Business rates is certainly not my forte in any way, shape or form. However, at what point do you draw the line, a sentence spanning a number of billing authorities? You either do or you don't, otherwise it ends up getting very blurred and it is never clear cut or quickly resolved.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking about the excellent fish shop in Yorkshire, Weatherby Whaler, which certainly does span at least 3 or possibly 4 billing authorities. Okay, on that basis, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Kim, for coming on and doing. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough. I hope that's been anything terrible. But yeah, thank you all very much. Thank you, Kim, for coming on. Thank you very much, Liz and Gareth and Kevin.
Thank you.
For all of you who contributed to today's discussion. Thanks, Jake, for stepping in and marshalling. And I will see you all next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Can I just
Next week's a bank holiday.
Next week's a bank holiday. We're doing it on Tuesday. We're not doing it on Monday, despite the fact that it's not a bank holiday where I am. But I'm at a conference next week as well, so I may not actually be.
I'll apologise for next week as well. I'll be travelling then on Tuesday.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, so but anyway, we'll see everybody next week, and it'll be Tuesday. And enjoy your holidays, Gareth.
I will. I'm going to be going to go and kill people in a field somewhere.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.